Hey there, CJ Math students, and welcome to Notes 1.13 Part 2. So far, Joe has both a homework average and a dojo average. What is his overall executive function average? So your executive function score in your grade is comprised of both homework and dojo. So his homework average, remember, if you recall, was an 84%, right? He had those two missing assignments. And we just calculated your dojo for the week. It was 75.6%, right? So basically what we're going to do is we're going to add these two numbers together and then divide by how much? We're going to divide by 2, right? So when I add them together, I get 159.6. So we do the division on this and divide by 2. So 2 goes into 159.6. 2 doesn't go into 1. 2 goes into 15 7 times. That's 14. 2 goes into 19 9 times. That's 18. Bring down your 6, and 2 goes into 16 8 times. So right now your executive function grade is a 79.8. Probably on the grade book that would get rounded up to 80%. Excuse me. All right. So that's just your executive function piece. Now at CGA we also have content, right? So Joe has taken 3 quizzes, 1 Ames Web. They count towards his content grade. His scores are below. Calculate his average. So we're going to take all these scores and add them together to calculate his content average. So we're talking about 100 plus 90 plus 70 plus 100, right? So obviously this is 200, right? When I do those two first, plus 90 plus 70, 90 and 70, if I add those together, is 160. 200 plus 160 equals 360, right? So now I've had 4 assignments in the content average. So I just do 4 divided by 360. That goes in there 9 times. Nothing left over. 4 goes into 0 0 times. So his content average, good news, is a 90%. All right. Now your grades at CJ are kind of tricky to calculate. 70% of your grade comes from your executive function, and 30% comes from your content. So let's calculate Joe's current average. We'll say 70% of his executive function. So his executive function average, remember, was 80. We rounded up. So 80 times 0.70. We have to do that. And his content average, we have to do, if you remember, we just calculated, was 90%. So 90 times 0.30. All right, so the first row is going to be nothing but 0, so I can just lay an egg. 7 times 0 is 0. 7 times 8 is 56. Don't forget we have obviously 2 decimals, so we need to swoop twice. Once, twice. That's a 56, right? And then we do the same thing here. First row is going to be nothing but zeros. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 9 is 27. We have 2 decimal places, so we swoop twice, right? Once, twice. So the overall grade will then be combining both of these together. You need to add 56, that was your executive function, EF, and 27, which was your content. You add these together. This is 13, carry the 1. 5 plus 2 is 7, plus 1 is 8. So his overall grade right now is an 83, or a B. All right, he had about an 80 when it came to his executive function average, and a 90 when it came to his content average. Why is it closer to a B than closer to an A? Because the executive function is weighted 70%, and 70% of that grade was an 80. So we're going to have closer to a B than closer to an A, because only 30% of his grade was weighted as content. All right? So let's pretend Joe earned the following averages this week. Calculate his new grade. So let's pretend his executive function skyrocketed, right? He went to 95%. So that's going to be 95 times 0.70. And his content, let's pretend he was at, fell a little bit, but he was at 80%, right? So we'll do 80 times 0.30, right? Now, we calculate these. This is lay an egg. This is 35. Carry your 3. 9 times 7 is 63. Plus 3 is 66. Remember, we have 2 decimals, so once, twice, 66.5. Lay an egg. 0, 24. 2 decimals. Once, twice, so 24. So we add these together. It's 66.5 plus 24. You could say 0.0 if you want. This is 5. This is 10. Carrier 1. And this is 9. So 90.5. And on the gradebook, we'd probably list that on your progress report as a 91 overall, right? Which would be an A. And notice, why does he have an A this time? Because his executive function, where 70% of the grade is weighted, is at 95, whereas content, he struggled a little bit, and it's an 80%, but it's only weighted 30%. So that's why doing your homework is so important. And plus, if you do your homework, you'll probably do better on the content, right? You have a modest problem here. Joe has a goal next week that his overall grade, he wants it to be a 90. If his executive function grade so far is an 88 for the week, what would his content grade have to be for him to achieve his goal? So basically, you want to figure out 88, 88 times 0.70. You want to figure this out, right? And then you want to find out, okay, what would I have to get in my content for my overall grade at the end to be a 90, right? You play around with the numbers and figure that out. That's the end of part 2.